Just because Todd was like, Todd said it's still recording.
If we knew you were sitting there listening, hearing what we were saying, you couldn't say anything, that would have been classic.
Let me just say this. If you're at the cabin and you don't have your phone locked and it's laying around where we could get to video, it's not going to be as nice as what we were on there. You'll wake up to, what is this video?
This is Hops and Spirits Bar Conversations. Come for the craft beer, bourbon, whiskey, and great drinks. Stay for the conversations.
Welcome into another edition of the Hops and Spirits Bar Conversations. We have a fun one for you as we're kicking off our Whiskey Weeks 2022 here on the show. We've already done that on a few other things this month. You can catch them all at hopspirits.com and on our social media and our YouTube page as well. We've got a fun episode for you. We closed out Cocktails 101 in August. We move into Whiskey 101 with Chad Watson, a.k.a. MyDailyBourbon, this month for tasting notes. In our conversation, it's a fun one, it's a wild one, because when technical difficulties happen, you just never know what could turn up, and it could be gold. And I think this week it is, as we talk with the guys from Smith and Wesley. I hope you enjoy.
It's almost time. Where did I put those? Here they are. It's time for tasting notes.
Joining us here for tasting notes, and we're continuing our 101 series, but we're leaving the world of Cocktails 101, and we're going to Whiskey 101, because it's part of Whiskey Weeks, National Bourbon Heritage Month here in September. And who better to have than MyDailyBourbon, or better known as Chad Watson. Chad, welcome in.
Hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate you. It's always a fun chat, and I was like, who better to have on Whiskey Weeks and to talk bourbon than a guy that's literally called MyDailyBourbon.
even more so this month. So I did a poll last night that was like, who wants me to post a picture of bourbon every day, or who wants me to do a review like once a month? And people, like, there were like 20 people who were like, no pictures of bourbon every day. I'm like, it's already what I do. I mean, it's no different.
I guess they didn't get the memo that it is MyDailyBourbon.
I was seeing how many people caught that, but not very many.
Well, sometimes, things are too literal and it goes over our head. But what is not too literal is what we're going to be talking about as we go through this. A whole bunch of different whiskey things. Mm-hmm. And while we could go down the rabbit hole of what is whiskey, all those good things, most should know what it is, or they can go on a tour. They can get the basics of what I might call Whiskey 100 or Whiskey 99 level classes. So for 101 on the first one, we'll talk about bottled and bond, because while it's mainly known in the whiskey world, it can technically happen in other realms as well. But what is bottled and bond? So
bottled and bond is the first Consumer Protection Act. It started in 1897, basically stating, because there's a whole list of people, and everyone puts Colonel E.H. Taylor on a pedestal for leading this, but there were a ton of people who led this charge. Basically, whenever people were looking at whiskey, and you're getting that brown color, they were using turpentine, they were using tobacco spit, they were just putting whatever they could into whiskey to make it look older. So everyone got together, not everyone. A handful of people got together, started what was called the Bottled and Bond Act, and it passed Congress in 1897. And what that meant at that time was, and I'll hold this up here for people who do watch the video, under U.S. government supervision. So at that time, when this was going into effect, it's not a thing now, but when that went into effect, there was actually someone from the government who lived at the distillery and who signed off on that warehouse saying that everything was good. These barrels are 4 years. They have to be a minimum of 4 years old. They can only be 100 proof. They can't be plus or minus. They come from one distilling season, which means, so there's two distilling seasons, January through June, July through December, and they come from one distillery and one master distiller. Now, these days it's kind of getting a little wishy-washy with, you can contract distill and still call it bottled and bond. I'm not sure how that works because that doesn't follow the technical side of it, but so this is the first, bottled and bond is the first actual Consumer Protection Act where the government certified, like, we need safety involved to make sure that the whiskey you're drinking does not kill you.
Which is a good thing, because we enjoy whiskey.
I very much enjoy my whiskey.
And you mentioned it nowadays. It is kind of a term that we see maybe more often to talk about a specific type of bourbon, and that, like you said, is something that has aged at least 4 years and is right at 100 proof. Can't be anything different. So when you're seeing those out on the market, that's basically what you're getting, right?
Correct. So to me, anytime you see bottle and bond, which, at that time it was the highest quality you could get. You wanted to be bottled and bond. You couldn't, if you weren't bottled and bond, then you were a nobody. That's kind of how the stories are spun. And I mean, not to get off on a tangent, but there's a little conspiracy that I've heard that people think that it was the big guys who did it to push the little guys out of the market because they couldn't afford to pay the government that. But anyway, you got brands like New Riff who that's their main focus, bottled and bond. And if you go to that distillery, read anything about New Riff, to them that is the highest quality of bourbon, minimal 4 years. So you don't have to search. If it says bottled and bond, you don't have to look on the back. Is it aged 24 months, 18 months, 6 months, 36 months? You don't have to do any digging. If it says bottled and bond or BIB, it's minimal 4 years old. And if it is older than 4, no one's going to put out, like, I keep bringing this up, but it's just it's what's near me. So this Heaven Hill bottle, 6 years old. Anything that's older than 4, they're going to celebrate that. They're not just going to throw bottled and bond on a 20-year-old bottle and just let it go on the market. No, brands are going to celebrate that, like Wild Turkey did with their 17-year. So I mean, that's a really big deal. Like bottled and bond is one of those things where people look at it and like, there's a lot of like $15 bottled and bonds on the shelf. It's like, well, it's a good starting point, and more craft brands are getting into bottled and bond because it's a guarantee. So some of these craft brands put out two-year-old product, and they'll do that for 5 or 6 years just to pay the bills. Well, then they come out with their first bottled and bond, and that should be a holy shit moment, or a holy crap moment, sorry, for
we're talking bourbon.
Yeah, I know. I always just feel bad for cussing. But when you see a craft distillery put out a bottled and bond, that should be a holy crap moment, because you're like, they finally have hit 4 years and they have enough stock to where they can continue to produce a bottled and bond. So that's how I look at it today. Like one of my favorite local distilleries, Bluegrass Distillers, the fact that they can do a rotating bottled and bond series with their different mash bills is great, because that means they've hit that point to where they constantly have 4-year-old product. So that makes me happy as a consumer.
Well, and I think that's the biggest takeaway is even if you see it and you're like, oh, it's $15. When we've talked about this in the past on a whole bunch of them, that's usually pretty good stuff for $15 when you really get down to it, because it's 4 years old. It's got some flavor, it's got some character, and it's not a bad thing.
Exactly, and we've gone on price point a lot on the show, but I mean I think people just turn their nose up at it, and not enough people understand what bottled and bond means. They have to pay tax. I mean, so anything that's bottled and bond, there's an extra tax involved. So the fact that, which most of those $15 bottled and bonds are from one distillery, and they can produce that much, but there's extra money that's going into that. So even if it's a cheaper one, it's good value. If it's from a small craft distillery, it might be a little more expensive, but I mean, you're getting the best possible bourbon that they can make at that time. There's no shortcomings to it, because there's no way around it. It's got to hit those marks, or the government won't give it the title of bottled and bond.
Although, as you said, there's a little bit of shakiness. As times have changed, things have changed, and consumers are, I guess, in theory, a little more wiser about what's in the bottle. Things have gone a little different. So, with that said, do you ever have to watch out when you see bottled and bond on something, or for the most part, you're good?
So, what I always suggest people do, because they have to by law, is look on the back of the bottle or on the side of the bottle. It'll give you where it was distilled and where it was bottled. So you'll see, like here, Heaven Hill DSPK1, DSP31, those are both Heaven Hill, but they're two different facilities. So it has to state what facility it's from. Now you've got brands out there, and I'm not trying to call anyone out, but like Smoke Wagon's got a bottled and bond rye coming out that is from MGP. Well, MGP is in Indiana, Smoke Wagon is in Nevada. I never knew that you could buy someone else's bottled and bond product and claim it as your own, because that kind of defeats the purpose of one distillery, one distilling season, one master distiller. So if it leaves from them, I get it's being made for that person, but I don't know. I'm not sure. So we're getting into that realm of, people are now finishing bottled and bonds. There's a couple of distilleries out there who are like, check out our rum finish, our port finish. This is our blended whiskey bottled and bond. It's kind of stepping on the toes of what actually is bottled and bond. Because bottled and bond, if you read the rules, it's very straightforward. It has to be A, B, C, X, Y, Z. There should be no gray area. So the things I would look for is if you are curious about a bottled and bond and you're kind of like, never heard of this brand before, pick it up on the back. Look at those DSP numbers, even if it is from another state like, Texas or Minnesota or South Carolina. As long as they are one brand that only has one facility, they only have to list one facility. But if you're saying 2 or 3 different numbers on there, might want to do some research because you could be getting into wishy-washy area.
That little gray area that has become the TTB and so many other things. And Chad, I appreciate this as always. I feel like this might be a 200 level course here at some point about on how things have changed a little bit with different things.
Oh yeah, I could ramble on for hours.
Remember to check out Hops and Spirits on social media at Hop Spirits, all one word, on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and Twitter. You can also find Hops and Spirits on YouTube and at hopspirits.com.
Joining us here for our bar conversations, and I specifically wanted these guys for the first week here of Whiskey Weeks. It's the country duo better known as Smith and Wesley. It's Todd Smith and Scott Smith. Guys, welcome in.
Hey, everybody.
How you doing?
Now, since this is called Bar Conversations and it's Whiskey Weeks, I think one of them I forgot to tell them it's Whiskey Weeks. So you guys drink anything good tonight?
Well, it depends on what you call good. So, see, I didn't realize normally I would have a whiskey drink, but I thought because I knew Scott would have a whiskey drink, and so I just thought I would change it up because one, I didn't have any Tito's with me. I ran out, and so I used what I did have, which was a little tequila, a little Fresca, and a splash of lime. So, cheers.
Scott, do you have some whiskey tonight?
Well, I will make us legit and say that I do have some whiskey. So, yeah.
Anything good, or shall we just plead the fifth and let everyone wonder?
Well, I mean, I don't know. We keep everything. I like everything from. Right now, I've had some Basil Hayden toast, which was excellent, and so that's been pretty nice. And your Woodfords, and so I kind of stick with all the good ones there.
Well.
And when there's a big crowd, I'll have some Gentleman Jack.
I like it. Well, because of where you guys are from, I brought out one of my favorites, a little Chattanooga whiskey cask 111.
There you go.
All right.
Absolutely.
So that's a must on my shelves. If anyone knows me, it's always there. So, as we get into this, we'll find out where these guys are from. They're from Georgia, but not far from Chattanooga, and
that's right.
They're brothers. We'll get to the name in a second, but what's it like doing this professionally as brothers? I mean, do you get along all the time, or is there a little bit of brotherly love there, so to speak?
Well, Todd and I, we grew up on a farm, and you really didn't have neighbors. So, Todd and I, if we were going to, go outside and play, it was usually, we would go outside and we'd playing basketball together, playing football together, fishing together. And we wound up going to the same college together and wound up being roommates at the same college together. Wound up joining the same fraternity, which we both were officers at the same time. And so we have been best friends and brothers pretty much ever since we've grown up. And we're not going to lie to you and say brothers don't have a little spat every now and then. And I don't think, there's been too many times where the whole band had to clear out of the bus and, we locked doors or anything. So I think, to me, it has worked unbelievably well. We tend to be able to work things out. And I guess that's the rate.
Although there was that one time up where he's from in Kentucky that we might have had a but it wasn't nothing a couple of drinks couldn't resolve.
Was that the radio tour?
Yeah.
Yeah. like I said, it didn't take long to have a phone call back to the room and Todd say, "Hey, why don't y'all come down to the bar? I'll buy y'all some drinks." So it was all
And we
good.
closed the bar down with guitars in the bar.
That's right. We
Just brought
wound
them
up.
down from the room.
Our tour manager wound up going and getting guitars, and so I think if you just the steering wheel what kind of went left there for a little bit, but went way over to the right, and I think we averaged being right in the middle. So we'll say we averaged just right.
Yeah.
I love it, and then, it's as I say on this show, it's the intersection of good drinks, good music, and good times. So nothing a little music and some good drinks can't fix. And but you all haven't done technically the music thing together forever. So how did that kind of go? When did you guys decide that maybe it was time to kind of combine efforts, or playing with different bands and things like that?
Todd, you want to start, or you want me to start?
Well, I had you go ahead. You can go ahead.
Yeah, I think I've usually answered this one many times.
Yeah.
But Todd actually had his own band, and it was a 3-part harmony band, and they actually did really well. Went to Nashville. They were signed on I guess an artist. No, you were signed with them, and then something happened. They broke up. Todd got an independent artist deal, and then. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the label, different management or something, the label got bought out.
They merged.
They
got merged. Yeah.
And right as Todd
anybody that's on the shelf, that's where you stayed. Was on the shelf. So
I've always played music with all my buddies, and I used to be a really big bluegrass player, so I did a lot of bluegrass, and then I decided to. Had a buddy of mine, Jamie Sexton, that got with me, and we started a band called the Brody Johnson Band, and I had a stage name, and my name was Brody Johnson. So we started playing as Brody Johnson Band and started getting a lot of traction. And so Todd used to come into town to see Mom and Dad, and so I would say, "Hey, you're in town, come over and jump up on stage and and play with us." Well, it almost got to where we started hearing more and more comments, and it got to where people were asking, "Where's your brother at? Man, y'all are awesome. You have that brother harmony." And so finally, my father and mother both, my father loved the music. He said, "Hey, y'all sound as good as anybody I hear on the radio. So why don't you just go to Nashville and go do this thing?" So we wrote our songs. We went and recorded it in Nashville. Did our first album. We're just about to release the album when we had the opportunity to play as Brody Johnson Band, opening up for Alan Jackson in Gwinnett for Governor Deal's inaugural gala. And that's when we got noticed by an independent label that said, "You guys are great. Who are y'all?" And we're about to, "No, don't release that album. We want you to change your name to a duo, and hold off on that album. We want to release it under our label and do all that." Well, that show was the last show that Todd and I's father ever saw us play. He died 2 weeks after that. He was in bad health, and so we did get to talk to him about getting signed, and he did know that, and his name was Wesley Smith, and so we decided to name the duo Smith and Wesley to honor him. And Todd can tell you the rest of the story, that the connection between the Wesley.
Yeah. So. My grandfather's middle name is Wesley. He went by J.W. as John Wesley. And then our dad's middle name was Wesley. And then he went by Wesley. My middle name is Wesley. My son's middle name is Wesley, and he goes by Wesley. So it was just an easy connection to say Smith and Wesley. That's really how we came, just to honor him. And so it just kind of stuck. But I will, since he mentioned Brody Johnson, I'll give you a little insider information. So the people that know us the longest know that there's a certain drink called the Brody. Since we're on bars and conversations,
that's good. Yeah,
there's a little drink called the Brody, and it's something that Scott specifically does when he's getting ready to sometimes go on stage, after stage, before stage. Pretty much anywhere, all we have to do is tell the road crew, "Hey, go fix us a Brody," and they know what to
and
do.
to this day, it's still called a Brody.
Yep.
Yeah. And let me just say that, like a true whiskey and bourbon drinker, that I don't appreciate people pouring a lot of Coca-Cola in my bourbon and whiskey drinks. So.
You prefer them to be a little
Brody is
stronger.
known for being stout.
Yeah.
I like it. I like it. Well, and you mentioned your dad being a big part of all this. I mean, how cool is it to have that part where now you can kind of be able to tell this story to folks like myself and others, and kind of honor him through the name, and then also just him kind of saying, hey,
Yeah.
you two get together. This is good. Like that's got to be a pretty cool feeling.
Well, not only that, but since then, and we're on our 5th annual Wes and Shirley Smith Charitable. We have a foundation that still honors Dad and Mom both, and we do a concert every year that the money goes to the Charitable Foundation, which we give money back to the community every year. So
all the money stays in that area.
and every year we play at the Northwest Georgia Amphitheater, which my dad was a part of building and paying for and donating it to the county. So, well, it was the year before last, I guess, the county came to one of our shows and surprised us on stage and named the stage after Dad, and it's the Wesley Smith stage, and put up a plaque. So it's pretty cool.
That is awesome. And I was going to ask about that in a little bit, but I mean, how cool is it to do that? Share it with your friends, share your hometown where you guys grew up, and also be able to give back, because the 5th annual concert is coming up on September 24th. So, I mean, how cool is it to do something like that?
Oh, it's great, because that's what Dad was all about. When he had a Northwest Georgia Bank Foundation that he donated millions and millions. He would have a golf tournament and different events every year to raise money, and he probably donated millions of dollars. Matter of fact, when the big tornado hit Ringgold, he was the whole bank building was shut down because the whole city was shut down. He was more worried about taking a check over to the emergency services for people that needed help. And so he took a big check over to start a fund for disaster recovery for the tornado. So that's what Dad was always all about.
And then, in addition to your dad, your mother, I think, played a big role. I think I read somewhere where she was y'all's original producer. Can you just talk about her and the impact she had on y'all?
Well, for one, I'll tell you this. So growing up, she cut a deal with our dad. We didn't have a choice in the matter. We didn't have a say in the matter. But basically, the deal she cut with our dad was if we were to play sports in school, we had to take piano lessons. And so that was the deal she cut. So we took piano lessons and played sports. So, it was a win-win.
Sometimes I probably didn't smell too good going to piano practice after football practice, but we made it happen.
Well, and I mean, like, I guess that's something that ended up carrying on for y'all, because clearly, music is something y'all love. I mean, was that just instilled at an early age, or how did that come along?
Well, not only the deal to either have to take piano lessons or do music, as long as we were going to play sports, but ever since I can remember, once a week, every week we would go over to the church to be in the choir, the children's choir, and so we were in the children's choir all the way through the youth group, and we would travel around. Our choir would travel around to different other churches and do programs. So all of that, I think, contributed to being able to do the music now.
Yeah.
And what music did you guys grow up on? I mean, were you being down there? I'm assuming a lot of country. Scott, you mentioned you love bluegrass. So, I mean, was that pretty much all that was on, or other things too?
Everything. Because when we would travel, so anytime we were in Dad's car, it was old school country. And so there was no other station on the radio besides old school country, which we didn't mind, but because we liked country, and so, and it also Southern rock, those kind of things. And if you listen to any of our albums, and you'll find that you'll see the influence. Twin guitars, you'll find twin guitars, coming from Allman Brothers or any, we really put that influence in our songs, and so that's a trait of a Smith and Wesson song is twin guitars, harmony in your face, and hopefully good writing.
Well, and then too, you guys grew up, you were right along the border there of Chattanooga, North Georgia. How did that impact? I mean, were there any influences there with just kind of, that area and what was going on there for y'all?
Yeah, I used to tell my
Sure.
I used to tell my dad the only reason I went to the bar yesterdays in downtown Chattanooga was to watch the band so I could learn new songs and learn, the chords to play guitar.
So I'll do a little pop quiz for you. So where we're from in Ringgold, which is just on the other side of the Tennessee-Georgia line, there are two legends of country music. One is living, one has passed away. Got married in our small hometown of Ringgold, Georgia. Two. One male, one female. One's living, one's
And they didn't
passed.
get married to each other. They didn't get married to each other.
And they didn't get married to each other. Yeah, they could have, same round time. But I'll go ahead and tell you because you're not going to guess. One is Dolly Parton, and the other is George Jones.
Oh, wow. So a lot of history there. A lot of. So you guys are like carrying on the torch then.
Well, actually, this was I think the 50th anniversary of Dolly Parton.
Yeah.
So the city had somebody come in and paint a big mural of Dolly downtown. So
yeah.
And I mean, how cool is that to come from I'm guessing down there though they love music, and that's something that you guys are able to enjoy when you're there. And for you, Scott, that's where you live still, and Todd, when you come back to visit, I mean, that's got to be a music scene if a few decent names have come out of there, so to speak.
Well, we'll tell you.
I mean, George is tons of music talent and not just country, right? I mean, you've got all genres of music. Godfather Soul.
Well, I'll tell you another cool story is Ringgold and Fort Oglethorpe, and they're right next to each other. They're in the same county. So this was a while back, I guess, when we had first started, but we were on the chart. We were on the charts, and it happened to be 3 artists side by side in sequential order on the charts, and we were all from right here, and that was Lorna Lana, Kane Brown, and Smith and Wesley. And so that was just, it was odd that, and I think we were doing a radio tour at that time, and everybody was asking a question. They would say, what is in the water in Ringgold, Georgia? What's in the water around there? Because it was, for that one moment in time, there was the 3 of us right together, and we're all from about the same hometown.
Well, and you guys have done a lot with music and being able to chart and do things, and I think a lot of that comes from your songwriting. And where does that inspiration come for y'all? I mean, obviously, this stuff's I think mentioned a little bit, and other drinks and so forth. But where does that inspiration come from when you're writing?
We've had some folks that would say, I think one of our road crew guys let his mother, listen to our music, and she said they sure do sing about whiskey a lot. And he said, yeah, they sing about whiskey a lot. But I don't really, it's something that we both just truly enjoy. And, it's just like the old saying. I mean, you find something you truly enjoy, you'll never work a day in your life, if it's something you truly enjoy. It's a tough business, and you better enjoy it. And it's a roller coaster ride a lot of times. And COVID, when the COVID pandemic hit, I mean, that was huge. It was huge for us because we'd just won Independent Artist, that year. And then it was a couple months later, we won Independent Artist, signed with a new label, new booking agency, booking shows, everything. We were still had the wind behind the sails, riding that train and all. And then everything just shut down. Everything got canceled. Yeah. And so
didn't even get to take that award out for a spin, basically.
Yeah, I know.
Because at that point, you're going to get more booking opportunities, just more opportunities in general. And at that point, it was just shut down.
But I can tell you that the feeling, I know the feeling's the same for Todd too, but the feeling hasn't changed. And I will admit, after COVID, I think the feeling is even more that when Todd and I get to stand beside that stage, after the traveling, after the sound checks, after everything, when you're about to get announced to go on stage and the band is already playing the music, that is one of the best moments ever. And fortunately, it has never waned in the way that it's felt, in my stomach every single time that you get to do that. And I guess, I hope not. I mean, I hope there may be a day where that you're like, oh, I gotta get up there and play music, but I don't see it anywhere in our future so far.
Yeah, I heard on the radio this week. I didn't know this. Dirk Bentley and I forget the guy that's touring with him that's opening up for him, but they take these ice baths before they go on stage so that it psychs them up and gets them, invigorated and ready to go and get up on stage. And I'm like, I don't need an ice bath before I go on stage. Just give me a whiskey drink and then I'm gone. And
everybody always asks, they say, do you get nervous before you go on stage? And I say, no, the word's not nervous. The word's anxious. I mean, there's nothing in the world worse than your band being up there and you're just waiting to join them and get up there and go through the set and play the music and entertain the crowd and interact with the crowd. And I say, no, it's torture having to wait to get up there, but it's something we really enjoy doing. And it's something that I always tell people, you don't retire from music. And, that's Willie Nelson and everybody else that's played. I mean, this is something that, as long as we have a crowd to go play for, I think, you do like all of our heroes and you just keep playing till you're playing somewhere else.
Yeah. Hopefully it's upstairs, not downstairs.
That's right.
Well, and I think looking at stuff from your shows, I mean, you have folks of all ages that love to come out, whether it's kids dancing or even folks my age and older, anyone out there getting it dancing. I mean, that's got to be a cool sight when you're up on stage and you got folks that are just loving the music and getting into it.
It is. I mean, and we truly do have all ages, and I think the last show we did, there was these little girls out just right in front of the stage, just kind of dancing and playing, and then you may have an older couple off to the side, just kind of sitting there enjoying it. So it is all ages that we get to entertain for. So
yeah.
Well, and
it's probably because we know how. I guess because we both have kids, and so we're used to that interaction, knowing how to talk to little girls, little boys, that kind of stuff. But at the same time, we are Smith and Wesley, and we know how to have a good time. So,
well, I mean, you have a shot of whiskey before you go on stage. I mean, I'm sure that's not just to warm up the vocal cords either.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you mentioned, you just got a love of writing and things like that. I mean, pretty much up until this last album, you guys were co-writers or wrote the main writers on all of the songs on an album, or at least the vast majority of them, but you switched it up for Land of Y'all. Why did you guys kind of do it? Was it just to give it another feel, or were you feeling some other songs that folks were coming in with? How did that go?
Well,
honestly,
when you first start out, you're not going to have all the songwriters in Nashville, knocking on your door. So as we progressed and our trajectory was good, and the first two albums, all of our singles, I mean, you can see a lot of them. I hang up every one of our single covers for our singles up on the wall behind me, and I think there's about 13 or 14 now, and all of them have done well. So our managers and Nashville folks, they're the ones that actually recommended you really ought to take a look. We have a lot of people sending us music they want you to take a look at, and don't pass up a good song. If you have a songwriter, a well-known songwriter, that's going to give you a good song, then you need to listen to it. So, they got hundreds and hundreds, of course, and they listen to it, and then they narrow it down to some for Todd and I to listen to. And no kidding, I think after we listened to them, Todd and I picked the same exact songs. Both of us listened to separate. We picked the same songs that we liked out of the bunch. And
yeah, we purposely don't talk to each other until we've listened to the songs. And then once we're able, and then we come up with the same songs, just, so it's
Yeah.
interesting.
And I think Todd
Well,
had
and
one
I
of the
think
albums early on. Todd sent me basically some poetry. I mean, he had the songs written, and he said, "Take a look at these." And so, I put music to it, and then I think there was one song that I did the music, did all of it, and we added a bridge, I think, or to it. But when I sent it back to him and let him play it, he said, "You're not going to believe this, but that's actually the music that I was playing along with it when I wrote it." And I had no idea what he played. I just had the words on paper. So we must have the same taste in music. I guess because we grew up together listening to the same music, possibly. But
Yeah.
does it ever give you goosebumps when you do
I
this?
think
Like,
we are at a pause here because our host hostess with the mostest is now ghostess.
he may have to go get another whiskey
I'm
drink, bourbon drink.
I'm still here, so don't worry. If you don't see me, don't worry. So, can you still hear me?
So, well, we're still recording here. So let me just take over as host, and they can do this. So what? Tell folks out there in video land where what got you interested in bluegrass.
Well, probably some buddies that I hung around. And what got me interested in bluegrass was we all sat around and played guitar. Well, I got tired of everybody sitting around playing a guitar. I said, we need another instrument. We can't just all sit around and play guitars. So that's when I went and got a mandolin. So when we got a mandolin, then we got a dobro, and then we got a banjo, and we started mixing that all in. And I will admit, we did play some of the traditional bluegrass, but what we would do too is we would take everything from Leonard Skinner to whoever, and we would turn it into a bluegrass song, which later on you see that all the time with like the Gourds and other different types of folks. But that's how the bluegrass came about. That and I guess we had mountains.
Well, and we've been known when we're at the cabin, when around midnight, we start a little bluegrass gospel hour. And so we just start picking around, and sometimes the gospel songs would turn into a little more bluegrassy gospel song. And so, but.
And with the gospel hour.
Fun times at the cabin.
I like it. Can y'all hear me again?
Cabin, I guess how many songs have we written at the cabin now? Probably, I don't even, gosh, I mean, probably one from every album.
Well,
maybe,
I guess
at least one.
I guess how many songs that we wrote at the cabin that we remember that we wrote at the cabin, and how many of them that we still we've written. Matter of fact, not only written songs, but we've done was it our first video, Little Things? Our very first video was at the cabin, and we did some other I guess.
Some of
shorts,
the
some shorts on the porch by the fire pit.
Yep.
We sure did.
Yeah.
So,
I like it. Can y'all hear me again? Am I good? Am I back? Am I back?
Well, tell us about. So since I got you here, and tell us about that picture over your right shoulder where you're standing on. Looks like a little circle. Of wood over there.
See that picture that's going to be right
about
there.
Tell us about that.
That is a picture
There you go.
of Todd and I doing sound check at a little old place in Nashville that is called the Grand Ole Opry. So that was sound.
I think I might have heard that.
Yeah,
one.
and so that's the piece out of the Ryman, the famous circle that is there that they took from the Ryman Auditorium and took over to the Grand Ole Opry. And so there'll be another picture over there, which is actually backstage when we performed. And that was performing a tribute concert for, and ironically talking about bluegrass, because I played Ralph Stanley, was a tribute after Dr. Ralph Stanley passed away. So we were fortunate enough to be asked to come up, and everybody told us we were crazy because we sang one of Ralph Stanley's famous acapella, which they said, y'all are crazy. Y'all are just going to get up on stage and y'all are going to sing with no band. And we did.
Yeah, that show, it was 3 hours, I guess, total from start to finish. They had so many people that wanted to play with Dr. Stanley. And we were like one of maybe two other groups that did acoustic. I know there was one for sure. There might have been another, I don't know. But it was, you talk about getting quiet, man. Right there, right before we start, it's just dead silent, and you're going into acoustic right before you just strum. It's it's an awesome feeling.
I like that.
Well, I
have
guess one of the
unfrozen
questions he was
for
going to
y'all, didn't
ask
you?
us is, I'll let you talk about it, but we talked about it a little bit. But why don't you tell everybody our journey to Music Row Independent Artist of the Year in 2020?
The journey, well, it was a long journey. You know, the cool thing is when we started out going to what they call CRS, Country Radio Seminar, when we first went, people were like, is this the gun, Smith and Wesson? No, it's Smith and Wesley. And when we first started, you know, people didn't, you know, when you first started out, didn't know who you were. And it kind of goes back to his question about the songwriters. Well, finally, when people get to knowing you and you're going and they see you and they recognize you and they know that your songs are being played on the radio, it just, you know, songwriters are more willing to give you their song because, you know, that's their livelihood as well, and they want to see it played on the radio. But it was a long journey. That was our one of the goals that we wanted to set. We set for ourselves was being Independent Country Artist of the Year for Music Row, and we were fortunate to do that. And thank the man upstairs every day that he gave us that opportunity.
Well, and if you remember, the very first CRS that we went to the awards show, very first one. And you and I were standing there when they were introducing the awards. And when they got to the Independent Artist of the Year, that's when we both looked at each other and we said, that's the goal. That's going to be our goal, to go get that and then see where it goes next. And we were able to do it, and it was an honor to get it. So,
well, for those that are watching, this is kind of part 2 because technology apparently didn't like me. I heard their conversation. I don't even know if I need to be here anymore. They've got my questions. I can leave or I can just sit back. But it worked out because, you know, Scott's got some cooler pictures than mine behind me. I got to get a better setup. That's my goal one day when we get into a little bigger house. But I love the conversations. I love the history that you guys have with music. And are you guys a little bit of like music historians to a degree? Because, I mean, you talk about playing on the Opry stage with the Ryman Circle. You know, Ralph Stanley, I mean, that's a legend in the bluegrass world. And, I mean, so clearly you guys have a love of music and a deep understanding of it.
Well, I think yes, but particularly coming from Georgia. I mean, you look at all the artists that come from Georgia, whether it's Allman Brothers, you know, in country, Alan Jackson, you know, of course, Zach Brown, of course, and then you look into, you've got REM, you've got the B-52s, like I said, you got James Brown, Sam Cooke, I believe it is, and so you just got a whole, you know. Then you get on to Indigo Girls.
The whole Athens, Athens scene.
Yeah, the whole Athens scene.
REM.
So it's just there's a lot. I mean, Travis Tritt. I mean, you know, we were fortunate to open up for Travis Tritt in Maryland, and that was cool. He was really cool to us. I think it was the fact that we were also Georgia boys, and you know, sometimes when you're you know, I'd say he's bordering on kind of the legend because he's been around so long, had so many great hits, has a respect for the legends like, you know, Waylon Jennings. I know that's one of his heroes. And so, but sometimes you wonder if they get jaded, right? And he was very cool to us, very cool. I mean, there were some other things inside jokes and stuff we could probably talk about, but he may not want us to, so we'll just leave that alone.
Well, yeah, and we've always, and it's not just. I mean, of course, we love country music, and that's what we do. And then, you know, it's a whole nother conversation if you want to try to define what country music is nowadays. We may get to that question here in a little bit, but you know, Todd and I both, from Frank Sinatra, you know, to to all the greats like that. I mean, it's not just the country music, but we grew up listening to, like Todd said, everything from Southern rock to beach music to the whole thing.
Well, and I think that might go back to being, not forced, but, the trade-off was to play some piano if you got to play some sports. So you probably learned a whole plethora of music. And, and does that come through in some of your all's music? Because, I mean, obviously, people can listen to it, but they might not pick up on some nuances or things that you have picked up from other genres. But does that side of music come into kind of what you guys put together?
I would say the Southern rock and even like Save Me, and there's some other songs that have, a little blues tones to it as well. Because, Todd plays the harmonica, so we've had many nights at the cabin where, you may go 2 hours with the 3-chord, blues riff, and about 2 hours and 45 minutes of it, Todd may be playing the harmonica. So,
yeah, or if we start to play Freebird, then that's another 15 minutes.
Oh, that's
where I'm just going
hey,
on the harmonica.
and that's 15 minutes is just for the harmonica solo.
Until I die, I can't breathe anymore.
And then Todd's like, start singing, play. Yeah.
Well, I mean, do you remember those nights at the cabin? Because while I was frozen to y'all, I was hearing stories about the cabin, and you might remember some nights, and you might not remember all nights.
Yeah. Well, so you were talking about songs, and I'm going to get there for a second. How we like songs. Well, one thing is harmonies. Got to have harmonies in that's just how we grew up, just harmonies. I mean, anytime you're in your car or wherever you are, people like to sing along with songs and the harmonies. Well, one of the songs that we always do around midnight at the cabin is called the Midnight Choir. And it happens to be sung by one of the best, arguably the best harmony-based groups who were also brothers by the name of the Gatlins. And we got before we became known as Smith and Wesley, I guess it was right early on when we first recorded our first album, we got to meet up with him. And we sang a little. We told him how we always at midnight we sing the Midnight Choir, and he was telling the history about how he almost got driven out of Nashville because of that song and the contents of it and everything. And but we struck up a kinship on that, and he sang with us, and we recorded it on one of our phones, doing the harmonies on that. Just picked it up just like that. It was just it was awesome. So. But that's one of the things we do at the cabin is we'll go late night, early morning. Scott's usually the one that shuts the place down, probably around 3 or 4. So
everybody always wonders why when they wake up the whole place is clean and ready to go for round 2 the next day. Or they say how did this place get clean? Yeah, I make sure everything's clean before I go to bed, so when we wake up in the morning, you don't have to have any evidence of how late you stayed up the night before. So nobody wants to see empty whiskey bottles laying on the ground by the fire and none of that. So,
or half drank beer bottle.
Yeah, sometimes that happens, but it's okay. And when you like when you guys are down there, obviously that's where some inspiration comes from and some good things happen. I mean, what's it like down there, or what's it like when you're kind of putting albums together? I mean, how does that process work for you? Because it's, at the end of the day, it's probably telling a story of the songs that you love and how you want it to go.
Well, I'll say first that Nashville musicians are incredible, and most people would never even could imagine, the magic that can happen. But they don't get our songs like a week ahead of time and practice them and work on them and do all that. We give them basically a scratch track of, basically the way we want the song to go. And then our producer's been the same producer, Shane Hill, and then Cody McCarver was a co-producer on the last one, I guess. But they all show up at the studio that day. You decide which songs you're going to record, and Shane Hill has it all written down on paper. the numbering system, and they all listen to the song or scratch track one time, make their notes, and they all go out in the studio and they count it off and they start playing the song. And then, they'll kind of mess around at first, and, the pedal steel guy will say, hey, how about, this measure right here? I'll add a little bit of this. And then so-and-so, you come in on this 4-bar here and you do a little electric guitar solo lead. And then, hey, why don't you, put some of that Hammond, right here behind this one. And then they count it off, and it's amazing. Todd will tell you, it is something to see. Well, I don't know if you know this information, but one of our songs on our first album, there is somebody that does a speaking part on one of our songs called Country Dreams. Well, that is Danny Shirley with Confederate Railroad, and Danny Shirley is our cousin. And so he has helped us out, tremendously. I guess the biggest help that he offered at first was don't do it. He still tells the story, because after we recorded a few of our first scratch tracks, he would call me up sometimes, say, hey, I'm going to West Virginia or Kentucky, why don't you come hop on the bus and go with us? And so one time I said, hey, I got this CD of some songs that we wrote in the scratch track, why don't you listen to them? And he tells me now, he said, oh, I was so nervous, because you don't know how many people always, do that, give me stuff to listen to. And he said, I already had it in my mind that I was dreading to have to tell you, don't quit your day job. And he said, but I was pleasantly surprised. And what did I tell you? And I said, you told me, go to Nashville and record them. And so Danny's been a great mentor for us as well.
I love that, because that had to be pretty nerve-wracking to give that option of that, and it could go wrong. And
well, he was going to give me his honest opinion. I'm just glad his honest opinion was positive.
There's something to that when you and that's at the end of the day, that's what you want, because that's how you get better. And as you guys talked about it before, technology decided to not like me. That's kind of how you guys have also built up, and you've now got folks kind of sending you tracks, wanting to work with you. I mean, when obviously you two have some weird ESP thing where you pick all the same songs, but I mean, like, what are you looking for? I mean, obviously you want a song that sounds like would be what you all want, and is coming from you and something that you all can relate to.
Well, early on, we had a lot of the people that, that would say, hey, don't you want to write some of this? At that time, they called it bro country. You want to do more of this type of country. You want to do more new country. And Todd and I just basically made a decision that, we're going to write the songs that we like to write, and we're going to record them the way we like to do it. And it's something that we would want to listen to. And then the attitude that we just hope a few people like it as well. And that's really the attitude that we've taken. We didn't, we haven't polled. We don't send out and poll anybody for, when we record. We actually go in and our producer Shane has always been great to not try to change it. He'll change things he needs to change as a producer, but not change your idea. So it's I think we just enjoy doing it the way we do it, and hope that a few folks will like it as well.
Yeah, and this is where I'm obliged to give my analysis of country music that Scott loves to hear me say. And it's this, is country music is like coffee. Some people like their coffee black. Some people like it with cream and sugar. Some people like it with Baileys. Some people like it with whiskey. But at the end of the day, it's still country. Just a matter of how you like drinking your coffee or your country. So that's the way I like to refer to country. Now, there's those folks that just blatantly hate some of the stuff that's being played right now, but hey, I like it all. So, but now,
well, and a lot of
bar and conversations. So we're at bar and conversations. We, I guess, off our second album, we ran a batch of Smith and Wesley Muscadine wine. And you want to tell the story behind that, Scott? Well, the reason I say that is because this is Whiskey Week. We want to do that with our own version of whiskey, because we're about to release one of our singles. I don't know if it's going to be the next one, but it will come out. and it is one of the songs that we've always wanted to release. We've always wanted to do it, and we are going to release our own batch of whiskey to help promote that song. But tell the one about the wine.
Yeah, actually, he just came in over here at the studio. Mr. G Money, our keyboard player, just walked in. So G Money has a vineyard here in Ringgold, and so a vineyard of muscadines. And so he approached me one year, and he said, "Hey, you know, I take all these up in Tennessee and have wine made, and the guy usually does a blend with other ones, but he said I was thinking about doing my own wine, and I don't need that much wine." He didn't say he didn't want that much wine, but he did say he didn't need that much wine. It's fair. And
Smart man.
and so he said, you know, would you want to do something with the wine maybe for Smith and Wesley? And I said, hey, that's a great idea. So we went, and I don't know how many cases we wound up having, but G Money, the keyboard player, got the labels, got everything. So we boxed them up, and then we had the idea to box them up and send them all the radio stations. And we had some radio stations that called back and said, can I get a whole case? But evidently, I don't know if it was G's green thumb or the weather that year or what it was attributed to, but evidently the grapes that we got that year, the folks that made the wine said it was probably one of the best batches they believe they've done. So it turned out really, really good. What?
Yeah. So it was a hit, and everybody loved it, and kept coming back for more. But we, you know, let's make sure we hit the rules and regulations. We did not sell it. We gave it away.
We gave it away. Promotion.
Well,
maybe we didn't give all of it away. Maybe some of it was used for personal consumption, but
exactly. But none was sold for anybody on the alcohol parole board listening. It was not sold.
It was not. It was given away as a promotion.
I like that. Smart to cover your tracks there. And you talk about kind of your next single, the single that's out now, Caught Up on My Drinking, continues to climb the charts. Is it weird to see it kind of be popular now? Because obviously the album came out, last year and so forth. So is that weird or just kind of how it played out with where you picked it? I mean, what's your thoughts on that?
I'll tell you how weird it actually is. We were finished up in the studio, and our manager came over to us and said, "You have time left. Do you want to record another song?" And I said, "I don't know. I think we've picked them. We got them. We've got them." He said, "Well, you paid for it. You paid for the time. You paid for, the studio musicians. You might as well use it." And so we all sat down, and our pick was one that we really, really liked the song, but it wasn't going to be one we recorded and put on the album. But we had enough time that we recorded Caught Up on My Drinking. We all just said, that's just a cool sounding song. I don't know if we'll put it on the album, but let's just record it and see. And then some magic happens, and then after it's recorded and mixed and sent back to you, you're like, holy cow, boy, that turned out really good. And so it went on the album, and then not only did it went on the album, it actually got chosen to be a single. The radio promoters, we let them listen to it and kind of give us a heads up of what they think. And they said, we love it. We can't get it out of our head. We keep singing it over and over and over. And that's usually, a good sign. And so it went from not being picked to record in the studio to being recorded and put on the album to not be put out as a single to being put out as a single. And here you are.
See, and one of the beauties about being an independent artist is like we are, is because some of the majors, they want you to do 2 or 3 singles off the album, then go cut another album. It's about making money. It's about selling that next album, where this is one of those albums where not every song, but there are a good number of the songs that are single-worthy radio play songs. And so because we're in the situation we are in, it allows us to do that, to sit here and play. So like we've got probably 2 or 3 more songs off this album that we may very well push to a single on radio play because they're that good. So, but just because of, there are pros and cons of being independent, and that just happens to be one of the pros of being independent. So.
Well, and obviously you guys have done well being independent. As we mentioned while I was frozen, that you all won the Independent Artist of the Year, although COVID kind of blew out the sales there. I mean, as you look back on your career and stuff, I mean, clearly when you're doing stuff right, you can get through things. I mean, was there ever a worry at any point, or did you always just know that you guys were going to be able to kind of keep climbing?
I don't think you ever really know. I mean, I think, when you talk to people, I don't think Todd and I ever said, we set out to say we're going to be on the CMAs and get an award and just be huge like some of the big names. I mean, although that is something we would love. Now, do we expect it and think that's going to happen? Well, you don't know in this business. It's right place, right time, right song compared to what other songs are out at the same time. And there's just so many different factors that go into all that for me anyway, Todd can answer it in a different way. It's great to get acknowledgement and great to get check marks to showing that you're impacting something you're doing. But at the same time, I feel like we're blessed being able to go out and play music for folks and, instead of putting on my suit and tie and going into the office every day. So if any of that makes sense. But.
Which is in one of our songs. So if you just have to go listen to the song to figure out which song, which album it's on.
Yeah. That was actually that was the second song we released.
Second single.
Second song we released.
Yep.
As a matter of fact,
I love that.
The song that we can't wait to release I guess for this show is the whiskey song that we wanted to release. Quick story is somebody came over to my house with the original person that got me to start putting a band together, which used to be our drummer. Now he heads up the road crew, Jamie Sexton. And so he brought this guy over that said, he told me you wrote this song, Sweet Life, in about 35 minutes. And I said, yeah, I sat down and I wrote that song. He said, I don't believe it. I said, well, I'm sorry. And he said, no, I don't believe it. And I said, okay. He said, show me, let's do one. I said, okay, go grab a guitar. Let's go upstairs in the studio. And, what do you want to write a song about? And he said, whiskey. And I went, okay, we'll write a song about whiskey. And I cheated a little bit because I'd had this chorus in my head for a long time, just waiting to put in a song. And it would talked about all the greats with Willie Nelson, Waylon Jennings, Merle Haggard. And I already had that chorus set. So I started strumming a song, and in about 35 minutes, I had whiskey written. And he said, well, by golly, you did write a song in 35 minutes. And so I can't wait to put that one out there and see the reaction, because it does have that flavor of some Southern rock, but yet gives a little hat tip to what Todd and I grew up on with some of the classic greats.
Yeah, I mean, we have songs so that do that point to those that came before us, and you'll hear it in our courses or wherever it might mention it. But so we do include that in there because we want people to know, hey, this is who we are, and fortunately, who we are where a lot of other people are. It's kind of stuff they like listening to. So,
yeah.
Absolutely. I was going to say, I mean, that's probably what put me on to y'all. And as we kind of wind down here, smithandwesley.com, you can find them on social media as well. Clearly you got maybe some more singles coming out from the album as far as what people might hear on radio. What's the rest of 2020 look like as we got a couple months left?
I guess, first of all, to kind of wrap up.
Or 2022.
Yeah, to wrap up.
I'll tell you what that looked like, and it wasn't too good.
Yeah. 2020.
I blame that faux pas on this empty glass.
Is that why you limit these? I think see, this show used to be 2 hours long, and they figured out we better cut it to an hour. because progressively towards the end of the 2-hour show, things could get pretty laughable, I guess, sometimes. No, but
A little bit.
no, we're really just like everybody else, kind of coming back out of this COVID. And our band, we kept everybody together playing and rehearsing just to be ready for when that switch turned. So really, I think we're looking forward to next year, and we're going to take a little different approach. We've really done well in Texas, so we think we're going to try to put more shows in Texas and maybe Oklahoma. And then also one thing we're trying to plan is, since we didn't get to go out and play and really reap the kind of the benefits of being independent artists and saying thank you to everybody, we've put together about 6 different groups of cities and radio stations that are heavy spinners for us. And so we're going to try to have a what we call a hometown tour, and maybe they're towns that don't get a lot of people to come play, but we're going to try to do that as a way to say a late thank you from when we won independent artists, because we had that taken away from us. We never got to go around and enjoy it and thank everybody. So I think we're going to kind of try to do a hometown tour and go to a lot of the heavy spin stations that we did and go say thank you and that we never got to for the independent artists. And then we'll be hitting whatever festivals and all of that we usually get to do. So
I love to hear that, and I think that leads perfectly into my last question. Like I said, smithandwesley.com. But as I mentioned early on in the show, the 5th annual Smith and Wesley and Friends benefit concert for the Smith Charitable Endowment is September 24th down at the Northwest Georgia Amphitheater. And you guys have given back, a lot throughout y'all's career. I think that's instilled from your father and your parents. You even did the Superman for a Day with St. Jude. So why is it important to give back? I mean, clearly that is something that is ingrained in you and just something that you guys have always wanted to do. So why is that?
I think that's, just the way we were brought up. Dad, I think Dad was a great example. Mom was also a great example. One thing about our mom does is, what Mom does now is she's director for a literacy program, and she's done that. She built the literacy program and raised the money to give folks GEDs. So Mom has lowered or increased the level of people that have GEDs around our area, and ran one of the top ones in the state and was recognized by the governor. So I guess we just grew up with it, and I don't know what else to say. Is that's just what you're supposed to do, in our opinion.
Yeah. Don't think I can say anything.
I was going to say those are perfect words. I was going to say that's a perfect way to phrase it, and I think a good way to end it. And Scott, Todd, I appreciate it. Guys, if you haven't listened to Land of Y'all, you need to check out all their albums, and this was a blast. And thank you for putting up with some technical difficulties.
We just be glad we kept it.
We'll come back and host.
If we would have known you just a little bit better, it could have been a lot of fun. So just because Todd was like, Todd said it's still recording.
If we knew you were sitting there listening, hearing what we were saying, you couldn't say anything, that would have been classic.
Let me just say this. If you're at the cabin and you don't have your phone locked and it's laying around where we could get to video, it's not going to be as nice as what we were on that. You'll wake up to, what is this video?
I love it. I appreciate it. It was a blast. We'll have to do this again. And thank
you. All right,
all.
thanks.
All right.
Appreciate it. Enjoyed it.